There's a really interesting conversation to be had, I think, around the difference between being busy, feeling busy, and being effective. I've never met anyone working in a care home who's not busy, not only feels busy, but is genuinely busy doing a lot of things. But that's really not the same as being effective, is it? And I think a lot of care homes, there's an awful lot of effort going in, but there's not necessarily a lot coming out of the other end. There's not a lot to show for that in terms of moving anything forward. We're in a mindset where we get through the day and that's great, but we're not making progress on the things that really matter. So what we want to talk about today is what we can do about that, how we can address the things that we are doing all day that are eating up that precious resource, time, our time pillar, and how that time is leaking away from us and how we can tackle that at a design level. So when we think about our time, how we can design the ways that we spend our time rather than let that happen to us. And I think this is a conversation for you if you're anyone leading or managing a care setting where you feel that there just is never enough time. You're always reactive and responsive, and you're not managing to get anything done. And we really hope that you'll benefit from this. You'll need to approach what you're doing, I think, with an open mindset. We always talk about that, and a willingness to think about how you can change your processes. Wanting it to get better isn't the same as doing something to make it better. So we're not going to give, I don't think, any immediate hacks for your day. We're not coming to you from California with a tech bro approach, a minute by minute plan of how you should deal with your morning or get ready for work. But we're hoping to bring you some genuine insights that we can improve how you feel at the end of the day, what you feel that you've achieved. So I'm delighted to say hello to Jay and Palvi, who've joined us today, and Samir is here too. Welcome, Samir, always. And I know that you've got a lot of experience and you've got a real focus on this and an interest in this area. And you've done a lot in your own services to look at how planning and process can move you away from that totally reactive state of mind so that you can try and tackle the things that are important, but perhaps not so urgent. There's a lot in there, but I'd love to hear your opening thoughts about what you've managed to achieve, what you've seen other care providers do or not do, struggle with perhaps, and what do you hear from other care providers? What in your experience is something that we all share in this slightly crazy sector that we work in?
Thank you very much, Robin, and hi, Samir and Bobby. So I'm Jay Dodhia from Serene Care. We set up Serene Care about a decade ago. And yes, we're a husband and wife team that works together. So I think what you've just said resonates with us because not only are we always feeling busy, it's because we're working together that we feel busy together. And I think that's an added pressure that not a lot of people appreciate, because if you're working together, the same challenges you face, being faced by both of you. So we always have that. But it also means that we can share that burden. And in a way, that helps a lot because we understand each other's perspectives really well, because we're facing the same situation, but from different angles sometimes. And that really helps us kind of work well together as well. What did you?
Yes, so I think from our perspective, we've had a bit of a journey where we've gone from 1 home to 4 homes, and that's changed the level of busyness. And what's so funny is we were so busy then, we're still busy now. We wonder what we were doing with all our time back then. So we realized that it's just your opinion, right? You can be busy and fill your day all the time because there's always things to do. So we've had to learn a lot in that 10-year journey of what is actually important and what is just noise. And it's trying to separate the two out. And what is my actual job and what is someone else's job? And that has been a big leadership change for me, is not just doing everything all the time. If it is a 24-hour service and it has to function all the time, and I've tried, I can't stay awake 24 hours a day for 365. Yeah, you do need to trust your team to have the skills. So my job as the leader is not to do, it is to train them to do. And that's what I've had to really adapt my skill and time. So what I used to fill my day with was doing. Now it's overseeing and actually training the people who are doing. So what that's meant is my day is a lot less reactive, because what I've done is I've got a lot more purposeful meetings where I will then look at what a member of my team has done in the last 7 days, 14 days. And I know it sounds really weird, but I love it if they made a mistake. For me to then go, okay, this is what I've seen you do. I've seen you work it out. But this is a better way of doing it. Obviously, I will step in if it's a real emergency at any point. But for me to constantly fix the problem for them is not training them to do it themselves. And if I'm trusting these people to be my eyes and ears, I can't then pay them and do it. I have to trust them to do it their way. And what I've had to learn is I'm not as clever as I thought I was. They're really, really good at what they're doing. And maybe it's a really different way of doing it. It's not the way I thought they should do it, but they're still getting to the same answer. So why am I interrupting and intervening? And actually what happens is by stepping back and not reacting, I'm learning better ways to do things I wouldn't naturally think of because I've seen someone else deal with it. We then step back a week later, 2 weeks later and go, right, these are the things I identified that you did really well. Keep doing that. And these are things I think that perhaps we can look on improving. If it was me, this is what I would have done in that situation. What do you think? How can we get together? And how can we put the process in that going forward, if something goes wrong, this is how you deal with it. By doing that, the team's getting stronger. They're learning new skills. So they know we're there to support and guide, but we're not there to do. And that's meant that the team in general is a lot stronger and we are now intentionally busy with the right stuff and not reacting, because the people that need to react are on the ground reacting.
To add to that, basically, like we said, we scaled up from one home to multiple homes. And when you have one home, you have to do everything because you don't have the resource, and especially if it's a small home, to hire a team to do that. So when we started off, we literally did everything. I mean, the week we completed our first home, our manager went off long-term sick, and we had no care for it. And it was a baptism of fire, but it was probably the best thing that could have happened to us now in hindsight, because literally Palvi and I moved to the care home vicinity. We stayed there throughout the week, and we learned the ropes by being not only the provider, but the manager. And now it's really set us up for the success we've had. But what we came with that is that also when you grow, one of the mistakes I made was I didn't invest in that growth. So I didn't invest in the team before growing. And that even when we had 2-3 homes, we were still doing a lot of day-to-day things, which I know Palvi kept advising we should, invest in. And it was always a balance of, because we buy failing homes and turning them around, finding that resource to add to it. But it means that we've got to... it means that we've had to learn how to delegate better as we've grown. And as what Palvi alluded to, stop doing everything yourself. Make sure that you give people ownership, embolden them to take ownership so that they feel empowered to deliver. And then, when they've made mistakes, sit down and review it in a nice way so that they learn better.
I think the way that you phrased it was absolutely brilliant. That you and your team know you're here to support and guide. You're not here to do. And I can see that if you're doing the doing, when there are other people who could be doing that doing, you can end up duplicating those tasks, or not necessarily even duplicating them in the same way. So the duplication in itself is a massive sponge for taking up time that nobody can really spare. But you could end up, if you're creating multiple copies of the same records, the same risk assessment or the same policy, you can end up with duplication, which is even worse, isn't it? In a tight care setting, you need everyone to know this is the way that we do it. There's one form that we fill in or one whatever. But here to support and guide and not to do, I think is a fabulous thing that we should all take away and remember. We've talked a bit there about some duplication that comes from failing to delegate or trying to hold on to things that other people could do. How else do you see that loss of time? Particularly, I'm interested in anything that you see around technology. So the situations you've come across where yourselves or in another service, people have adopted a piece of tech that you would think would save time, but actually they've ended up having to put more time in than they did before.
So a big one for us is when you have technology, but that doesn't quite do everything. So then you have to add more technology and add things in duplicate or triplicate, which wastes a lot of time. And then you don't have time to analyze the data because all you're doing is inputting data. And we find that there's been times we've done those things and we've invested the time to put it in, but not actually review the point of what the reason was to add it in. So again, that's been problems we've had historically. Now we're more intentional, and we always, like you were saying as well, is it saving us time? What's the point? How are we going to use it? Follow it start to finish and say, we're going to invest this money in, what is my return on investment? Is it going to be my time? Is it going to be the staff feel less stressed? Is it that it makes me more compliant? Is it that the residents, are going to have reduced falls because we're putting this technology in, which will then have the overall, better outcome for them? What is the purpose? But also, and Jay's very good at this, is ensuring that he's negotiated our exit up front. So if it doesn't then work, how do we get out of it? And how do we not trapped into a contract? So Jay's been fantastic at making sure there's a pilot. It's a short pilot, not too short, maybe like 3 months, 6 months. So we've got time to try something. But he'll always then say, if you're so confident in your product, why won't you give me a pilot? Why are you putting me in a contract? And that's always been his thing. And then a lot of companies are like, no, well, it's a lot of time. And he's like, but why? If you're so confident your product's so good, cancel after the pilot. What is the issue? And then most people then don't know what to say, because if they think it is that good, why are they trapping me?
Yeah, great point.
Break it, right? If he does it, I'm too scared to say stuff like that. I'll just repeat it on a podcast.
No, just try before you buy, right? Absolutely. I agree with you more. Absolutely try before you buy. And also, I think it does give us that opportunity to also make sure that what the after sales is like and what the aftercare is like, to make sure the implementation has been successful. And you mentioned earlier on that those repeatables, to make sure that you're getting that value out of there. A good short-term pilot really focuses that, doesn't it, Jay? Great shout.
Yeah,
so glad you're doing that.
Absolutely, Samir. And as you know, we like to trial everything that's out there because it's such an evolving landscape. And when technology works really well, it really helps. And the way we look at it is that, does it pay for itself? If it does, then we put it in. Because we are running care homes. We most of the care homes we operate are on a local authority budget. So we need to find those savings, and that's very key for us to consider. So it is about not only will it make a difference to the residents' care, which is the number one point. Two, does it pay for itself? And by putting in a trial, putting in a pilot, getting them to stand behind what they're saying. So effectively, it means that on one hand, they've got another incentive to make sure it delivers, because they know that there might be a break. They put in a lot of effort, and we find that there's a lot more engagement. But secondly, it makes you see if it's worth your while, because a lot of time technology comes in and then it's just technology for the sake of technology, because nobody's looking at the report, nobody's using the data, they don't know how to interpret it. They're so busy already on the floor, giving personal care. If it then requires them to sit down and, put in loads of reporting at the back of it, you're better off doing paper-based care at the end of it, right? So it's just making sure that whatever you have, one, always with the residents in mind, improves the care. Two, pays for itself, and three, works. And if it does, it's a no-brainer to put it in.
I think that's an amazing example of being prepared to fail at things.
We're always prepared to fail.
Yeah, Palvi's very good at that.
Yeah, we're very big on that too. If you're so determined to succeed the whole time, or if failure is so uncomfortable for you, then it's very hard to improve, isn't it? Whereas if you can get your head around the idea that, well, I might get this wrong and I'm going to design it so that it can go wrong and I'm not going to feel terrible about it, then I think you can be much, much more objective as you get towards that 3 or 6 month point, when you ask yourself, well, is this doing everything I was promised or that I wanted, or how are my staff getting on with it? So maybe it helps you to be much more objective about whether what you've chosen is actually the right thing for you, whether you're using it in the way that you thought you were going to. That is a really brilliant idea. Thank you. And we know that tech comes into care homes, and the idea is that it removes something, as you say, it frees up time, it reduces cost, it removes maybe risk to a resident. One of the things that it might do is remove decision making or make that decision making a bit more painful. And I'm quite interested in that because I'm not very good at decisions. I find them quite tiring. So I think if it can support managers and owners to make decisions more easily, then that frees up some of your mental capacity to think about what else you want to improve in a service. Have you, when you took on that home, when you were placed in that position suddenly to be effectively owner, nominated individual, manager all in one go, that must have been exhausting.
I was
not least from all the decisions.
I was also pregnant, so that was fun as well.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was very exhausting, I think. I still remember we had our first CQC inspection a few weeks into our ownership. 2 months in, and they walked in, and all our ceilings were down. We were doing a full refurbishment of the home as well. And honestly, we didn't know what to expect because, it was our first and there was no manager on site. So again, it all fell on us. But I still remember they actually, at that time, CQC were very supportive, and she was fantastic. She said, "Oh, I can see you guys are really making a difference here."
She said, I've been in this home so many years under the old provider, but this is the first time I'm seeing someone invest. I'm seeing the owner here. I'm seeing the residents are being engaged. And she said to, because we didn't buy these big singing, dancing, purpose-built homes, the local authority home that we were converting and trying. And she's like, "This is the first time I've seen this passion, and I'm seeing it. And if the owner's sitting here, waddling around pregnant, trying to make sure everything's perfect, what more can we ask of behind the scenes?"
And also, Palvi had all the risk assessments, like the builders were all DBS checked. We had everything in go. They were all sectioned off. So, the residents were in one part of the home, while builders worked in this completely separate part. And there was an entire plan, which put all project management skills to good use there. And honestly, it served us really well. It gave us the confidence that we kind of needed at that point because we said we didn't know what we were doing.
We've been faking it for 10 years and we're getting away with it.
Oh, I'm sure that's not true, but it must have been a really difficult time in terms of balancing firefighting, dealing with what was immediately in front of you, and bringing your leadership into the home, because I imagine, correct me, maybe I'm wrong, but I imagine this was a home that didn't have strong leadership before you came in.
Yeah, I mean, the culture of the home was, a corporate culture, and I don't mean to be disrespectful about it, but because corporates have a number of homes, it's very hard for them to really, focus on single entities, especially when they earmarked this disposal. It was, a very small home for them, and the manager had been in situ for over 20 years, so she was very much, the culture behind the home, and she had her entire family working in the home. So it was one of those type of situations. I think one of the reasons why we loved it was because it was a period property. There was a lot of ways for us to make it more fit for purpose. Palvi did a diploma from Stirling University in dementia design, so we were able to apply that to the refurbishment. But the hardest challenge for us was actually getting the cultural change, because the staff were used to working in a certain way with very few residents. And, we had one-to-one meetings when we purchased the home with each member of staff, understood where they were coming from, what their gripes were, how we could make things better for them so they could care better. And that gave us a really good understanding of the residents, or of the staff who are there really to care for the residents as well, as opposed to those who are just there for FaceTiming. So you need to make those changes as well. We don't want to do anything and rock the boat immediately, but by spending some of our time learning about not only how the home works, but how the staff are interacting with the residents and being on premises, has really helped us to get that perspective, actually.
So when you bought that first home, Jay, that was almost the epitome of a home where they probably felt like they were busy every day, or the team felt rushed off their feet.
Yeah,
and they probably felt like they weren't getting anything done right. What you're saying in terms of that reinvestment, in terms of that progress, in terms of that learning for that 20 years before you took over. It sounds like that home really leads into this conversation around, they weren't really leveraging the skill sets, the team that they had, in improving and driving the quality that it sounds like you guys have achieved very, very quickly in a short space of time when you took over.
Yeah, I mean, that home had 30% to 35% occupancy when we took over, and was effectively very well staffed, and still they needed more staff. And that's a pattern actually we've seen in every one of the services we've actually purchased, because they're used to working with a certain number of residents and certain number of staff, and it's then been, all these processes, challenges, kind of getting them trained up, thinking in a different way how to work more effectively.
So that's what we want to learn. That's the secret sauce we're here to explore and you to tell us all about.
I'm fascinated that you met everybody individually, because that must have been a big investment of your time and energy. But it sounds like it really paid off for you. You learned more about the staff. I presume it also allowed you to communicate with them what you wanted to do.
Us. It's like consulting for us, right? We don't know these services. Our staff do. They've been there for years. They know these residents. The quickest way I'm ever going to learn about these services is to hear it from the staff who are doing the job, hear what's good, hear what needs improving, see their perspective, but also see we can't take it blind. People will have their own agendas, their own opinions, and their own experiences. We then look at that and say, okay, thank you so much, we do it. But also you learn so much about the person when we first come in. And I love that, because you really get to know the team when you first buy the home. And you know what's nice for us is, because it's a turnaround, everything we do improves the service. If we're refurbishing it, if we're adding tech in, if we're getting new uniforms, it all just makes every week, every month is just a better month and stuff. So then we can step back now and go, oh, we did that. It was our investment that we did that. But again, it's them who are doing the care, and technology is there for them to feel like they've got time for the residents. What we don't want to do is keep wasting their time trialing new systems that aren't there fundamentally to improve their time with the residents. And I'm not trying to take away their autonomy. So, for example, we still want to make sure our residents are having lots of fluids and stuff and having the right drinks and all of those things. But the fact that our digital system will then highlight and go, oh, you're not meeting the fluid targets and stuff, really helps give us the right care, which before, we all know what happened. They'd write at the end of the day, Mary had all her drink. Isn't that what they used to do? When I bought the care home, that's what they used to do. They'd wait until 5 minutes before handover and go, she's fine, she's in the lounge. What is that? And I remember the staff would shout over and go, did she eat all her food? How much was it? Let's just go with a quarter. I mean, that's how it used to be back in the day. It was acceptable. Now it's completely different. We're using digital tech to actually say, let's do it at the point of care. Let's log it as we're going along. Let's then look at the records and go, did we meet the targets? Did we make the outcomes and stuff? And make sure the handovers are digital for us as like the owners to then read the handovers while we're at home and go, are our residents okay?
I think the way that you described that was so original. I've not heard it put in those terms before, but the idea that you can get free consultancy from your staff, I think is really powerful. And if there are people listening who are thinking, well, this is all great and quite inspiring, but I don't know what to do, perhaps one piece of advice that comes out of what you're describing is go and have a two-way conversation with some of your own staff.
Absolutely. And also what you'll find from there is that certain staff have certain perspectives of things. When you have a well-rounded conversation, you come in with a clean slate, so you don't have any preconceptions. Never go in saying, oh, the manager said this about the staff, so there must be that. We always go in with a completely clean slate. We understand their perspective, and sometimes it's just a slight misunderstanding. Sometimes you can see that someone is actually stirring the pot or being mischievous, and you know how to manage it, and it really gives you that perspective.
Thank you. That's really, really interesting. But I think it's quite hard if you're on your own. You've described very powerfully some of the aspects of working together. But for a manager who is a manager on their own in a service, it can be quite difficult, I think, to look at your own diary, your own day and say, well, what should I do? How can I make my life better? Even if you can see that you're spending a lot of time very reactively and you're feeling very busy, but you don't feel like there's a lot of output. Do you have a sort of good starting point to jump in? You talked, Palvi, about being intentional with your time and the way that your diary is set up. Would you be willing to talk us through a bit of how you've organised yourself?
I love it. What drives Jay mad? I have to do this with everything. What I do, every Friday, I'll reflect on what I did or didn't get done for that week. Then I'll plan my diary for the following week and make sure, and this is the most important thing, is I don't put too many meetings in. So I have a small window of times that you can have meetings. What I don't want to do is spend my day having meetings about meetings about meetings. that's all fun, but I really need to be having time to get my work done. And I realized that if I didn't have an end time, I could work for 18 hours a day. But me saying consciously, okay, I'm going to stop at 4, I'm going to go pick the kids up, this is what I'm going to do. It's interesting. You can genuinely get everything you need to do if you give yourself a deadline. And I say to myself, this is the time I start, this is the time I end. And then I always give myself so much slack in the week for emergencies. So when things then randomly pop in, I always have time, that's a 1 or 2 hour window in that gap for me to then turn around and say, okay, that's fine. I can give you half an hour at 2 to 2:30. It's not a problem. And then I've got that. What I used to do, my biggest mistake was for a very long time, I would so overstretch because from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I was constantly in meetings, and then someone would cancel and then they would want a window, and then my next window was in 3 weeks, and it had to be on that Tuesday, and it was getting ridiculous. And what I found was I was burnt out, I was overwhelmed, I was ineffective. But by giving myself some space to get it done, that was really important. And the other thing is I actually do treat my personal life like it's meetings. So going to the gym is hard coded in the diary. It's not like, oh, I might go to the gym today. It is very much my fixed times. So the things I do for my own well-being is in the diary, and then treated now. And it was never been like that before, but they are my non-negotiables. This is the time I'm doing X, Y, Z for myself. Everything else has to work around it. I can't just constantly not have that downtime, because what I found was, and we were talking about it earlier, is that your energy is always very stressed out if you don't have things to relax you. So I needed that time to go to the gym, have that time with my kids where I'm making dinner and just being mum without constantly having my phone ringing. So even my team know that between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m., yes, they can call me in an emergency. Of course they can. But what is a true emergency? They now know what the definition is of an emergency. What is an email that I'll respond to tomorrow versus a phone call today?
How did you set that clear expectation? What did you do the first time somebody rang you at 5 o'clock and said, I need your help, and you thought
I fired them? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, we've all
That was before you had the HR department in place, Palvi. Yeah. That was just when
I didn't answer.
Right.
Part of it is literally not answering.
So just don't make yourself available. Let people leave a message, and then you decide whether you feel they need your help.
Also, what we've found in our experience is that if you give people time, they will work it out. We always do this. If it's something that's critical and urgent, like CPC walked in, you straight away answer and you're all hands on deck. If it's like, oh, staff member has called in sick for a shift, how do I cover it? Give them a bit of leeway, give them a bit of time to see it, and suddenly a few minutes later they'll be like, oh, don't worry, I've covered it, because they've had to think of it. It's always easier, like you said, not to make the decision yourself.
But it's actually something Jay taught me, which he doesn't do for himself, but he doesn't taught me how to do, was I had this whole thing. I was like, Jay, I need a work phone. A phone I can switch off, and I need my personal phone, except I forget to charge even my one phone every day, so let alone having 2 phones. So that worked for a week, and all I did was now just have 2 phones that I needed to charge, and I'd still be checking both of them. So that wasn't working. And then Jay made a really good point, and it was on WhatsApp. You can archive your groups. So he talked, and it was his suggestion. He's like, just WhatsApp the things that don't need your urgent attention then and there. So what I now do is I have like my main head office, main people that I need to see then and there can WhatsApp me, or they can call me straight away. Everything else goes in archive. And now, because of that, I will make sure I then pick up my archive messages a few times throughout the day. So I do look at them, but it might not be that immediate, 8:01 when they send it at 8:01. I might pick it up at 10 o'clock, because those people definitely need me, but they don't need me straight away. So it's by keeping myself and the team as well of, okay, let me know, but do I really need to know that second whilst I'm on a meeting? Like right now, whilst I'm on here, they will be sending messages. I will pick it up in an hour or two. However, there'll be certain people that will need to get through to me immediately, and they should have that immediate access. And I was really struggling with all the noise of knowing what is there to prioritize when everyone's constantly coming at you. And that's what I was really struggling with, because I don't like saying to people, no, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be that person. That's not in my nature to do it. But it's by having those boundaries and saying, these people have access to me all the time, and these people don't get immediate access to me.
They don't need it. I think
we
it's
often refer
hard.
to them as the pings, dings, and the rings, right? Our phones going all the time, and quite often when we talk about this time pillar that we're here to talk about today, and I love that analogy, setting those boundaries around those pings, dings, and rings, I think will be a big takeaway for me today.
I'm really now you great. I never heard it. See, I've learned so much. You as well today.
I was intrigued that you talked about planning your week. So you think about your time in terms of weeks rather than individual days.
No, I already know. Honestly, I already know what I'm going to do in July. I'm literally that obsessed about my life that I know about my schedule, but also I have to factor in mum stuff. I have to factor in my personal stuff. What I used to think was very separately. I would turn around and go, oh, this is my work schedule, not factoring that. It was like my son's birthday weekend and I'm going to be crazy busy. By looking at my whole life as a holistic picture, I realized that sometimes life is just busy because my personal life is busy and I need to adjust my work life. And sometimes work is very critical because there might be a regulatory issue. So I need to downplay, the personal commitments I've got. But even with my personal life, I don't overstretch the way I used to. Jay used to get me so mad every weekend. I had plans every Saturday, Sunday, to the point that I'll be like, yeah, Jay, you want to see your cousins? Maybe in 4 months. We would have that lunchtime, we're free. How's that? And now it's like, it's gone the opposite. We're hardly busy, but then if something comes up that we both feel like doing, we'll be like, oh, should we just do that? And that's given us back a lot more time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other point, just to go back to, is when you've got one home and you're doing everything, your managers, your deputies, your staff all have direct access to you. As you scale up, it's changing that mindset with them. So we've had to put in those boundaries. Polly's been very good about reiterating it nicely in her training with the managers, saying, okay, right now, we've got our compliance manager, we've got our HR manager, first go to them unless it's critical. But obviously, something really urgent that you need help with, we're here to support you. And it's putting in that support, but not doing it for them.
But also, Jay goes to the services, so he's just come back from the service where he did the in-person visit, where they spoke and they caught up. I do every week. I do a managers meeting, so I get all my managers together and my head office together. So we have a group meeting. We talked about it. We know and also they know that this is a group issue. It's not like I'm picking one manager. I'm not picking on anyone. This is just a situation I've noticed. That's a theme. Let's train you all. It might not be something you're dealing with today, but it might be something that you'll deal with tomorrow. Like IPC have come in and suddenly there's a new change, or we discovered that there was a gap in our process here. Let's tell everyone about it. Let everyone learn in one go. Then next week we do it again. And by doing that and having that intentional hour or 1.5 hour meeting that I do every single week, it's hard coded in the diaries for the managers and myself, where we basically say it doesn't have to be the same time. So, if a GP walks in or something, I won't say, okay, well, we're done, you've missed it. We'll just reschedule. So we all have to work together to try and get everyone in that meeting, and we can all then talk openly. And then a week later, we can talk about something else.
And I think that worked really well to create a peer network for the managers as well, because now they leverage off each other first sometimes, rather than running to us for everything, again, which helps you buy back your time.
And maybe they can come to you with a proposal, a solution, or at least some ideas, rather than just, I'm stuck, I've got a problem.
Yeah, and also I can say, and I can ask them as a group and say, this is the way we've always done it. This is what I'm noticing. What do you guys think? And then as a group, they'll go, oh, I don't really like it. This form's not the best one. I'm struggling with this system. And then the other managers can also jump in and go, oh, actually, I was struggling until I did ABC. And so by doing it that way, they're empowered to make a decision. They can talk about it. They can help each other. And also I'm learning, because there's so many things I don't know about because I'm not doing, they're doing.
And we want to foster a culture of continuous improvement. And a lot of time, if you get managers, the deputies from other services, they bring that knowledge with them, saying, actually, at the previous place, we used to do this one like really well. And we're very, very happy to adapt ourselves constantly to make sure that the outcomes are the best for the residents.
So you're really trying to make as much use as you can of that knowledge that's in your own team and the peer support.
Why is everyone not just talking to their own staff? They will teach us how other groups work, how the big corporates do it. And it's up to us. We don't have to take their suggestions. It's just if they're really good ideas, why wouldn't we?
And that's always how we've done it. I mean, we've had to do it from day one like that. And I think, like you said, it was a baptism of fire that worked really well because it's created that continuous learning culture for us.
it must have been quite the experience at the time, but it sounds as if you've come out of it with an awful lot of strategies that have supported the growth in your business and really made that possible. Because without those changes that you've talked about in how you operate, I think you would be absolutely drowning now, wouldn't you?
Well, one mistake I think we made, which I think a lot of people make, is that we overstaffed, and we thought the more people we put in to solve the problem, the better. That was a big one we've learned from. We've actually had to reduce a lot of our head office staff in the last 6 months because we found that itself was creating a lot of more egos, more personalities, more people talking, and more things, less doing. Our wage bills were going up, and at the end of it, I was just as stressed. So we had to step back and look at it and go, these people who are here to take my burden away have actually caused a lot of extra burden. Let's stop that. And let's now look at who's actually the performers, who's got the really good attitudes, and who are the ones that I can rely on who always come through. No one's perfect. No one is. But who's got the best values and really cares about the business, us as people, and the services, the managers and stuff. And those are the people we've retained.
So helpful. Thank you very much. That focus on peer support and working as a community is absolutely at the heart of what we do in the DigiHive. And I think whether you're making links with people in your own service or outside of them, being open-minded about what you can learn from others is really important, isn't it? And it sounds like it's been a huge part of your remarkable journey.
I couldn't agree with you more, Robin. I think this whole idea of not having to reinvent the wheel, you know, we're all in this together in this sector. I think one of the things I reflect upon over the last sort of 2 decades of doing this is that we all used to be very guarded. We all used to be, oh no, I can't share what I'm doing and I can't share my ideas. And it's so refreshing to hear that you guys have kind of blown that out of the water, and you're like, look, we're open, we're going to learn from one another. We're going to be really open-minded about new ways of working. We're going to innovate. Just because we've always done it this way, or that's how it's always been done, it's not how we're going to keep doing it. So zero politics, zero gatekeeping. It sounds like you guys just got a great team that are all rooting for one another's success, which is fantastic. And I'm sure will lead to even more success for you and further growth, hopefully, as you move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you.